name is Matt Lowman, and I am Program Director at Any Length Retreat. My sobriety date is January 5th, 2017. I am a recovered heroin addict, but I'm also recovered from meth and marijuana, pills, cocaine. I use pretty much everything. So I started smoking pot as a kid, middle school. Smoked pot all through high school. Once high school came around, I started popping pills and eating ecstasy and snorting coke, all that stuff. I actually went to treatment first before getting on heroin. I went to treatment, came back. I was at a party one night. I'd taken some Xanax bars, and me and a buddy were barred out, as you would say. And a guy was like, "Hey, you want to come do some coke?" And we were like, "Yeah, sure." And we went to this dude's place with him, and he pulled out a bag of syringes, and I ended up shooting coke that night. One thing led to another, and it wasn't long after shooting cocaine that I was shooting heroin, and then that began a 8-year opiate addiction, and then I was addicted to meth for a year after that, because I thought meth was the answer, so I wouldn't get dope sick anymore. As a junkie, I went from living indoors and having options in life and looking at school and all these different things. And slowly I got to the point where no one wanted me around because I wasn't somebody you wanted around. And so I spent a lot of my 20s homeless, couch surfing, doing the whole drug addict life. And, I had a long stint of homelessness near at the end, and I had to go through a state-funded program, which may or may not have worked. But luckily, I ended up at Any Length Sober Living. Since I had a few months sober, my parents were willing to help me out with the first month to get into sober living. I got to Any Length, and then I learned about another side of recovery that I had never been taught before, and then it worked. Realistically, in the last 7 years, I've gotten high 5 days. I had a slip up at the end of December of 2016, and a few days into January. I knew that I needed to get sober, and I knew that it worked, so I was like, I need to get back to business. So it was a very, very brief, short relapse because I knew there was a better way. There's a reason at Any Length, our motto is recovered for life. There is such thing as a recovered brain versus a drug-addicted brain. One way to look at a recovered brain is, somebody in the book, it has promises from the beginning of the book to the end of the book. And if somebody is experiencing all those promises, they are recovered. One of the most obvious ones is step 10, which says, we're no longer having cravings, we're no longer fighting the urge, so anybody who's white knuckling technically isn't recovered. The book says that we can lose all that, and that has happened for me. And it's happened for a lot of people that I know. Unfortunately, it only works if you're working a full program and doing everything you need to do, because you can slide back, and scientifically recovered is forming these new neural pathways, these positive ones, these recovered ones, or recovery-based, sober-based lifestyle, and that becomes the new norm, the new default setting. So recovered is a very real thing. It actually can be proven, it can be measured, and if somebody doesn't achieve the promises of the book, they need to either take a look at their actions or they need to go consult professional help.